Let's practice multiplying radicals. When we multiply radicals, this is what we have to do. Basically, three things. So you're going to multiply the outside numbers, like 4 and 7 outside the radical. Then you're going to multiply the inside numbers, like the 2 and the 5. Then you're going to simplify. Okay? Multiply the outside numbers, multiply the inside numbers, then simplify. Outside numbers, 28. Inside numbers, radical 10. At this point, we try and simplify, so you look at your radical. If there's a perfect square that's a factor of this number, then you can simplify more. Turns out that we can't, so we are done. Number 2, outside numbers, inside numbers. And now we look at 60. And is there a perfect square that goes into 60? You can refer to that list of perfect squares that we wrote out yesterday. Start with 60 being the highest number, so try 49, 36, 25. Okay, well, I think 4 is the biggest perfect square because that's 4 times 15. 15 can't be reduced anymore by a perfect square. So we do the square root of each of these numbers, so we can take the square root of that, it's 2. Radical 15. And remember, at this point we said we always multiply the outside numbers, right? That's what we always can do, multiply the outside numbers. And when we do, we get 12 radical 15. Okay, next. Number 3. So for this guy over here, multiply the outside numbers. I threw a negative in. Don't get confused. Yes, you can do a negative times a positive. The other thing that I did here that's different was I used parentheses. Parentheses imply multiplication. You can use the dot also. Parentheses is has become more popular because a dot might look like a decimal, and sometimes our numbers have decimals. So we're going to multiply here. Negative times a positive, that's negative 15. Ooh. And now we're going to multiply the insides. Okay. So, 12 times 60. 720. Okay. A couple of things that we can do here. You can decide, you know what, maybe I'll simplify first and then multiply. Let's try that method. If you choose to simplify first, slide this up a little bit, now I gotta write small. Radical 12, hopefully we can do radical 12 quickly in our head, so it's negative 5 radical 12 is 2 radical 3 times 3 times radical 60. I knew that because I just did it, right? So where is it? Here's radical 60. It's 2 radical 15. Now we said multiply the outside numbers, multiply the inside numbers. Well, that's 10, negative 10, times 6. Negative 10 times 6. Then I multiply my inside numbers and I get 45. Always check to see if you can simplify, and you can simplify radical 45. So radical 45, I don't know, I'll give it a try, and it's going to be 9 times 5. So that becomes 3 radical 5. Multiply your outside numbers, negative 180 radical 5. That is your final answer. If you decided to stick with this guy, then you're going to have to try a whole bunch of numbers. Sometimes I go this way instead of dividing them with my perfect squares. Sometimes I will divide 720 divided by 2. 360 is not a perfect square. 720 divided by 3. 240 is not a perfect square. Let's see, 720 divided by, well, 4 is a perfect square, so I'm going to try only prime numbers. 5 and 44. That's 12. So if you dig for your biggest perfect square, then you can say, okay, well, look, this is 144 times 5, square root. This is 12. Multiply the outside numbers, and negative 15 times 12, that's your negative 180. So you can do it that way also. To me, the second way that we kind of decided was kind of easier. Simplify, multiply, and then simplify again. All right, there might be a couple extra steps, but it gives you smaller numbers and you get the answer. Number 4. So for this guy here, again, we are going to multiply outside numbers, multiply inside numbers, but you need to distribute. So here, if there is no outside number, it's kind of like a 1. So that's going to be 4 radical 14 minus, and here, multiply the outsides, 8, multiply your insides, and it's 12. As soon as I do that, even though these are not like terms and I cannot combine them, remember we added and subtracted like terms with radicals, we still want to make sure that we can't simplify. And as I look at radical 12, that's one of those that I know it can simplify, radical 12. See if you can do it in your head. So it's 4 times 3, so it's 2 radical 3. Remember to multiply these outside numbers. Radical 3 and radical 14 are not like radicals anyway, so we cannot add them. So 4 radical 14 minus 16 radical 3. And that is our final answer on number 4, number 5. Number 5, we need to distribute, or double distribute. We can say it's foiling if we want to do that, but we have to multiply both of these numbers times both of these. 3 times 5 is 15. Positive times a positive. Outside numbers, inside numbers. So you just kind of put them next to each other. Distribute here, negative times a positive. Outside number, then inside number. Negative times a positive. There is no outside number, and 2 times 2 is 4. Multiply your inside numbers. Now we simplify wherever we can. 15, done. These guys here are like terms. If we see like terms, we're going to combine them. 3 and negative 5 is negative 2 radical 2. And this is 2, minus 2. I have like terms again with my integers. So 15 minus 2, that's 13 minus 2 radical 2. And that's the final answer on that one. 2 more. Number 6. So for this guy down here, again, we're going to FOIL, and that's what we just did up top. So FOIL, double distribute, however you want to say it, but we're first going to distribute this first number, then we're going to distribute this second number on the left. So multiply here. Outside numbers, inside numbers. Multiply here. Don't try and simplify all in the same step. Things get really hairy and confusing. So just one step at a time. Positive times a negative. Outside number, inside number. Well, 1 times anything is that number, right? Now we're going to distribute here. Outside numbers, it's positive 28. Inside number, positive times a negative. Well, 7 times 1 is 7. Okay. Now we simplify wherever we can. Well, square root of 9 is 3. And 8 times 3 is 24. These guys in here are like terms. Negative 2 and positive 28. So that's going to be positive 26 radical 3 minus 7. These guys are like terms. So 24 minus 7, that looks like it's going to be 17 plus 26 radical 3. And again, remember when you add like terms, or you see they are like radicals, your answer is a like radical. That's it. The only time the inside radical number changes is when you multiply. Okay. Number 7, our last one for right now. Then you guys can practice some multiplying on your own. We are going to double distribute. So distribute our first guy. Distribute over here. Positive 12 radical 2. Distribute here. Negative times a positive. Outside numbers, inside numbers. Negative times a positive. Outside numbers, inside numbers. Okay, so now what we do is we glance at all of these terms. 2 things we're going to look for. The first is like terms. The second is to see if we can simplify. Well, the first problem that we did right above had radical 2's. This problem over here had radical 3's. This one gave us a radical 12. So if when you multiply inside radicals, you get something that you can simplify, you have to simplify it. So I'm going to do that before I even look for like radicals, just in case that becomes a like radical with anything. Minus, okay, so radical 12 is 2 radical 3. Multiply the outside numbers, so that's 12 radical 3. 12, radical 2, radical 6, radical 3. I have no like radicals, so I'm done. Okay? It's like having an x, y, and a z and a number. Sometimes you cannot combine them, and that's totally fine.